the stuff that I know, like as a fan of somebody, that I want to dig into like specific decisions, right? Like, why is this character like this? What made you want to do these things? Um, and I've read the whole series. I've read the first two. I don't know how it ends, but my experience with the story, right off the bat, is that it feels very much like a military gun story. It starts out with two guys who are military contractors, and they're doing the work. They're in a dangerous situation, and it feels very grounded in reality. And then everything goes to the wire, and you experience some they describe tumultuous times. The question that I have is, I know you have an army background, but why private military contractors? Why not make them army base?
That's a good question.
Maybe what they were
Um,
showcase.
there, I don't. So sometimes it just like works out. Like I think for me, it was these two guys could have separated at any point. And what you usually see after your time in the military ends is when you actually return home, because you're usually a group of people from all over coming together. When you go home, you don't have those same buddies usually around, unless you like signed up together or them through someone or something. So for Eric and Rugrat, they actually knew one another in the military, and then they left the military, and then they were like, actually, we're gonna still hang out and be buddies, and we're gonna go do these private military contracts with it. It also adds a kind of maturity to them because okay, so when you go in the army, you're in the military, usually pretty young, and so there's a saying in my head which I'm not supposed to repeat. But you're young, dumb, and yeah, yeah. But when you retire out of it, or when you've done this for a long period of time, you kind of have a new perspective on stuff. And I think that allow like Eric and Rugrat are not anymore like, hey, I need to prove something. I need to like really get into this stuff. Now, could they have been military personnel that got pulled into this reality? Yes, they could. But I think what would have happened was they like if you're in the military and you get pulled into somewhere else, your main job is I need to get back to my unit. These two have left the military. They are now basically it's just the two of them, like Rugrat as we see, he has his mother and he has like other siblings and stuff. So there is connection from there. But they were just like, okay, we're gonna be sent to this thing, and they get over to the other side, and they're like, this is kind of cool. This is like the best retirement for military people ever. Like there is a part where for them it's not as much of a loss. I don't think. It's also like drawing on private military contractors don't get a lot of support once they're outside, so there are really bad injuries that happen to him. And it actually drew from a story of a guy I knew who he was a private military contractor in summers between his military gigs because what he would do was he would just transport copper in South Africa, and that's where I was like, oh, you should use this. Cool.
I think the thing that I liked about it, as a writer, the fact that if they were in the military, if that happened, the military would have swooped in and tried to control every bit of their experience during those 2 weeks.
Yes,
And the fact that you happen to be contractors, so they just covers.
it's also so because if anyone's been in the military, you know how this kind of goes, where some people will have all of these ideas and tell you that's the thing that you're supposed to do, and they're not great ideas. And so you're like, okay, we don't want to actually do that thing. We're gonna go and do the common sense. And I think like their story is essentially two dudes get transported to this other world and they figure it out. It's not they got manipulated or you got to report to these guys, so you got to figure out why is the 2 week curse happening. They're like, no, we're just here and dealing with it.
Well, they're both capable.
Yeah.
And they're bright. And they're not bright enough.
Yeah.
And they're just left to figure it out. The one question that I don't know if you answered it or are willing to answer it. Why 2 days? Why not 10 days?
Sounds good. Yeah. Yeah. But that's mostly the rule, right? It's like D&D, you're like, hey, let's just have fun with it. Yeah, I think 2 acres was just like, ah, sounds cool. But it's also it gave them enough time to like Eric gets paused, right? And he's like dealing with that. It takes time to actually get from where you are back to wherever you're gonna be. And then they have like a few days to adjust to that new situation. And so in those few days, it's like, all right, like we gotta prepare essentially for what's coming next. And it makes it fast enough that it holds that kind of tempo. Because it is when I look back at it, I go, oh, those first 10 chapters, like a lot of people are like, why didn't you just cut the first 10 chapters? And I go, well, if I cut the first 10 chapters, you wouldn't know who they are already. You wouldn't establish them as characters that know what the heck they're doing. And it also is a lot of people go like, this is the most unfantasy fantasy I've ever dealt with. Because you use magic as like it's how you use a power grab.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, because it's kind of fun. And like if you could make a 50 caliber bullet hit like, I don't know, a howitzer, it's kind of awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
The way that they implement magic
Yes.
is a lot of fun to me. Having that like tighter timeline, with the clock on. But also give them enough time to like get ready, which allowed them to, when they got whisked off to the 10 rounds, they were kind of ready, kind of prepared.
Yep.
Which was great. One of the compliments that I'd like to give you about the story is it's a wonderful, total story, right? And it's just off the bat, guys get dropped into a new world. It's good. The way you were able to, in a fairly quick way, integrate elements of, like the core lit RPG aspects of, kill, you experience, the basic framework. Starts off very quickly. I was consistently surprised though with how easily you got the cultivation stuff implemented, and it feels organic.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like you walk up to it like I'm in staple menu. It felt like it actually kind of was designed purposefully, and it feels good. When you were coming up with the genesis for the 2 week verse and the 10 rounds as a whole, I know you've said that I wanted to write the story I wanted to read, right? Which is just a terrible answer.
It's great. Isn't it?
When you were thinking like I want to write the story about these guys, maybe at first, what made you want to go down those different routes of the lit RPG game lit stuff and then the cultivation stuff? And you even have like robust base building in there as well. So like why add those cuts? Why not stay in one other than ADHD?
It's a powerful thing, and so many of us have it. Which surprises me at how many books we can actually produce, right? Of like we are ADHD maniacs, because we're just like, oh, like that seems cool. Throw that in there.
That's the age.
Yeah, that one thing. Have you ever read the scene of like Eric making freaking pills? Man, that was a lot. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna alchemy the crap out of this. And then I realized that I had to make so many scenes about alchemy of all of the different pills and everything that there is a codex. And I was not a smart man. I had to write this in a paper book. So there is a book that just has all of the information of the 10 rounds in it. It's not an Excel sheet.
It's priceless. It's an artifact.
Yeah. It's also a huge pain in my anyway. The getting back to lanes, bacon. No, so the system was actually kind of fun because I was reading a lot of cultivation novels, and I love cultivation novels because it's like you reach a threshold, and you have to basically figure out some way to get past this threshold. And then I was also like, I really like Oblivion. Why don't we just make these two things meet? And it was actually easier than I thought it was going to be. Way easier than I thought it was going to be. I was like, this is going to be so freaking tricky. But what I found was the two systems actually have roots in one another, and then as soon as you like combine them together, it's like, kind of sweet. it's also because I wanted them to earn everything. Sometimes it felt that if you would get things because you would get things, you don't get them because you lived for them. And I found that cultivation specifically was I have to put dedicated time and work into this, or I have to get resources and make this thing to make it work. Right. Same with body temperature. Body tempering, I think, was where it like was like, oh, this is cool because it's like I heard Robert kind of talk about this. Is like it's like working out, and then you never stop making out, right? And it just adds and adds and adds and adds. And so the more hard work you put into it, the better the result. And these two guys are so used to just putting in the hard work that now it's like they're like, oh, I get rewards for it. But to see that, and it makes them badasses, but it also they're like, hey, how can we cheat this system? And I'm like, I'm okay with a little bit of pain for this. And then they go through a lot of pain. Like there's some stuff that I'm like, wait, why? Why did you do this to yourselves? And then I remembered that like they're not like they're in my head and I'm doing this to them, but they're also doing it to themselves. Next question. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. Now they're doing it. And we're doing it.
It is interesting though, of like when you have a character and then they are so real doing their thing. I roll for a lot of the things that happen in the story. So like if we come to a fight, it's okay, does that hit? And we roll and we say, does that hit? Yes or no? And then it's also, okay, what kind of hit is it? Is it a really like bad hit, not so bad hit, that kind of thing? And then we can also do like stuff like there's actually this scene where a Rugrat very nearly dies. And it was a tense day on that computer. I will tell you that. If you ever see this scene where Rugrat is getting healing potions thrown in his face, that is because those are healing saving throws. And they were literally just like, okay, maybe we can like put it back together. And it worked, but very barely. And that was actually a dice roll. He was like the last dice roll. He was like, "Are you gonna live? Are you gonna die?" And I was like, "Oh, thank God. Okay, we don't have to start this whole book all over again." But it does. It adds like this layer of you just don't know what's gonna happen.
Do you like the idea of randomizing those decisions? Does that feel empowering to you or restricting to you?
I think because like life is about chaos itself. When you have that chaos in the actual books, it means that the characters are like, I don't know what else could happen. And it makes it feel better. Because if you're like, oh well, this is gonna happen, so this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, then it can feel complicated. Whereas you just go YOLO, and then you just say, oh, yeah, that's not gonna be great. We'll see how that goes.
Well, I think like not to disparage some authors in the community, but there's a subset of writer who writes, like their own fantasy. Yeah. Right? Like they write themselves as the character somehow.
Yep.
Which is fun. I've done it.
Yep.
And then their character and their story is always successful. Like everything they dispatch, and they're kind of on the railroad to success.
Yes.
I imagine I've never been a dice roll fan, but I imagine the idea that like, well, they're not actually on a railroad, they're on a roller coaster and they can hop off the train in the tracks. Might make it read more realistic. And I applaud you for that.
It is also like but there is other factors like the characters have okay, they've made this deal. All right, well, it's going to change the odds in their favor a little bit, right? So I go, all right, depending on how strong that character is, how strong they are, how they feel. Yeah, there's a lot of times where the actual characters are like, oh wow, like they're gonna like hit this, and there's like well, there's 2 chances that they're not gonna hit this, and they whiff so hard. There is a scene in the 7th book that everyone probably knows that happens because of a dice roll and my buddy being a shit. And he was like, you know what you should do? You should do this. And I was like, I kind of like that, but I shouldn't just like base it all on that. And then I rolled for it. I was like, I guess between these 5 things that I like have 5 things. I was like, that thing that you told me about, we're gonna do that thing. He's like, really? And I was like, we're already 3 chapters in. I'm not gonna back down. But I think that it makes more fun.
It seems like
Yeah, or just a lot of words to try and undo the thing that they have created in life. Thank you all for
one of the things about the book that I liked,
Mhm.
the series that I liked, is their banter.
Oh yeah.
The two guys just while they were constantly grinding each other, and like my friends and I, like that's it's very much our brand of humor. Um, when you're alone and you're arguing with yourself and making fun of yourself,
Oh, that's where they go to.
your own feelings. No, no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is okay. So it is interesting the banter because it's just like it's the banter I know of like military guys just hanging out or like just hanging out, right? And it was interesting with a lot of people like, hey, I really connect with this because that's exactly what it's like in the military. I was like, yep, yep, it's yeah. But I think it was also like not filtering because I think sometimes it's like, oh, like let's change this so it makes sense to everyone instead of keep the inside jokes. So now the inside jokes are accessible, but you would have to go and Google a few things, right? Right. And then once you've done that, you're like, oh, I've learned something that I didn't know before. Right. I know that sometimes, like when I started reading like military science fiction, and I was like, what the heck is foodborne? And I was young at the time. I didn't know that that was just the state of things. Um, and I was like, once I found that out, I was like, this is I love this. This is a phrase I will enjoy forever. And then when I joined the military and everyone was using it, I was like, yep, no, that makes sense. This is where it came from.
everybody know food line.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
It's fair.
What about Italian today? Yeah, interesting. I have a lot of military buddies. You know, all my buddies should be military, and whenever they're together, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And the level of grief they give each other over literally everything would break so many people who just don't get that sense of humor. And in a way, it's armor, right? Like you become infallible to criticism when all you get is criticism, right? And then when things get really, really bad, and there are points where it gets really, really bad for Eric and Rugrat, the fact that they're just like so used to like just getting ragged on all the time,
Yeah.
it's just like roll with it, you know, it's no big deal. You crack jokes about it. You're like, oh, you're missing a leg. Brush it up.
Yeah, right. You got another one.
Right. And that just like it takes so much of the sting out of like particularly bad situations. And it's great. It's really well done.
Yeah, it needs. I will say that there is that dark. Like I know a lot of guys who are vets, EMT, gymnasts, that kind of thing, and then they are like, I just can't help but chuckle because it's just like hanging out with buddies. I'm like, yes. If that's not your kind of humor, I am sorry. That's totally fine. I totally understand that. It's probably not the book for you. There was a guy who reviewed this, and he was ex-military. He was like been out for like 20 years. He's an older fella. He's like, really like this book. It took me back to those days. Boy, do they swear a lot. And I was like, yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I forget the counts, but there's like 1,000 words or something like that. There's at least a dozen F-bombs.
Oh yeah.
Now me, I'm dialed in. Like, okay, this is on brand. I'm very happy with this. But I'm also thinking, yeah, there's a lot of people who figure that out. But as a writer, I know I want them to be out immediately. Right? Like if it's not for you, I want you to be able to make that decision really quick.
So you're saying that I made the font well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's you must not have this many. Must get past this many fucks to clear chapter one. Yeah. I guess that's fair.
You should coin that term.
Yeah. With stats, yeah. Yeah, no, there is a lot that goes on before even chapter one ends. Yeah. But like, yeah, no, it's actually like, yeah, you want to make it as if you don't like this in the first 10 pages, right, don't do this. Yeah. But that said, then that was actually it's interesting because a lot of people are like, oh well, like I thought it was gonna be like I like when I made the blurb of like in 2 weeks they get sent to a fantasy world, I had to do that on the blurb because when you start, you're like, oh, it's probably military contract. And I'm like, well, if you are like, I thought it was a private military contractor thing, and I'm like, really didn't read, which doesn't make sense because this is a book. The blurb, so don't read the blurb first. But no, like I think that telling you this every fantasy, I've been hitting the ways it's private military contractor, right? And it actually shifts your opinion because you're like, I'm a little confused as to what's going on.
I mean, I think you said, you touched on it earlier, right, like, in that 2 year period, even you get to know who they are before they go away. And I mean, otherwise, it's just, if you don't get to know who they are before, there's no point in there being before. Right, you might as well open up chapter 1 and learn anything else.
Yeah.
Cause like, there's no, if that's status quo, then they're lost it, you know?
It's also like they get to prepare, right?
Right.
And I had so many people comment to me and they're like, they took exactly what I would expect them to take. I was like, awesome. Because that is a hard thing of like, people are like, I wouldn't take those things, I wouldn't prepare the same way, the narrative itself, which is fair. Because it just doesn't, it doesn't make sense to me.
Some people like this. We can talk about it. Does anybody have any questions about the stuff we've talked about? We wanna kind of open it up for people to jump in and what's the conversation, so it's not just us talking at each other.